The mountain was quiet that morning. Too quiet. Mist rolled off the jagged peaks of the North Cascades, curling low through the evergreens and settling like a ghost over the hidden lake trailhead. There was only one vehicle left in the lot. A white Jeep, its windshield fogged with dew, its doors locked. Inside, on the dashboard, sat a birthday card. Rachel Lacaduck had been gone for 2 years. For most families, hope doesn't last that long. For most cases, the silence becomes unbearable. But on this day, 667 days after Rachel walked into the wilderness and never came out, a man stood in the middle of those woods, soaked through, trembling, and staring at something orange peeking out of the moss-covered ground. He stepped closer. His boots sank into the wet earth. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't debris. It was a thermos sleeping pad. And beside it, a green backpack. And then his radio cracked. "I've got her. I've got her." The voice on the other end didn't reply. Not right away. It was as if everyone who heard it knew. This was the moment they'd been waiting for. 2 years of heartbreak, doubt, and endless searching, all crashing down in one breath. And what they found that day would haunt every single person who was there. But before the mountains gave up their secret, before that chilling discovery, we have to go back. Back to the girl who walked into the wilderness on her birthday and never came back out. Rachel Lacaduck wasn't the kind of person who scared easily. She grew up in Moses Lake, Washington. One of those towns where everyone knows your name and the mountains are always staring back at you from the horizon. Her dad, Brad, better known in the community as Brad Dad, used to say Rachel was born with hiking boots on. By the time she was a teenager, she was spending every free weekend on the trails, climbing ridges, crossing rivers, chasing sunsets that most people only ever see on postcards. To Rachel, hiking wasn't just a hobby. It was her therapy. And if you'd met her, you'd understand why. Because as bright and fearless as Rachel was, she carried heartbreak. She'd been married once, to a man named Jamie. They'd built their life around travel and missions. India, South Africa, Ireland. They'd gone everywhere, done everything. And for a while, it seemed perfect. But life doesn't always follow the trail you expect. When her marriage ended, Rachel came back home. She moved in with her dad, spent long evenings laughing with friends, and threw herself into hiking. That was Rachel. No matter how rough it got, she believed in one thing. If you keep climbing, eventually you'll see the sun. Her next climb was Hidden Lake Lookout. 8 miles of rough terrain, steep elevation, and snow that lingered deep into the fall. Most people would have looked at that trail and said, "Not today." Rachel, she looked at it and said, "Birthday hike." The night before, she laid out her gear. Her bright orange thermos sleeping pad, her purple sleeping bag, her green backpack. On the kitchen table, she left a note for her dad. "Back by morning. Don't worry. Love you." At sunrise, Brad watched her drive off in her white Jeep. Music turned up, coffee in hand. Her messy red hair lit up by the early light. He didn't know it then, but that was the last time he'd ever see her alive. Hidden Lake Lookout is one of the most stunning hikes in Washington, if you survive it. The trail starts soft, weaving through green forest, but by the halfway mark, it's nothing but rock, snow, and raw sky. Rachel signed the trail register at 1 p.m. Hikers later recalled seeing her smiling, upbeat, dressed in black tights, shorts, and a NASA tank top under a light jacket. One couple descending warned her, "There's snow up there. Visibility's bad. You sure you're good?" Rachel laughed, tapping her trekking poles on the rocks. "I'll be fine. I've got gear. Thanks, though." It was the last time anyone saw her alive. By nightfall, the temperature plummeted. Winds screamed over the ridge. Rachel's friend in Bellingham, who was supposed to meet her after the hike, waited. Midnight came. No Rachel. Morning came. Still nothing. By 9 a.m., Brad was at the trailhead. He spotted her Jeep immediately. It looked like it had been waiting for her all night. And that's when the dread set in. The sheriff was called. Search and rescue teams mobilized. Helicopters swept the ridges. Volunteers shouted her name into the biting wind. But the mountains didn't answer. The first 72 hours were chaos. 137 volunteers, 2,000 man-hours, drones, dogs, ropes, and thermal cameras. They scoured every ravine, every chute, every false trail. Nothing, not a jacket, not a boot print, not a single trace of her. Brad didn't leave. He couldn't. He joined the rescuers, his hands raw, his voice gone from yelling her name. On the 10th day, the sheriff gave the order. We've done everything we can. But Brad didn't hear it. He wouldn't hear it. Even after they shut it down, even after the trucks pulled away, Brad stayed. I'm not leaving her out here. And he didn't. Weeks became months. Rachel's case became just another missing person file. But Brad came back, over and over. And he wasn't the only one. Because one man, someone who didn't wear a badge, refused to quit. Carlton Bud Carr Jr. was not a cop. He was a mohawked ex-con who had found Buddhism in prison. Bud called himself a karmic janitor. He cleaned up the messes the world left behind. When Bud heard Rachel's story, he packed up his gear and drove to Hidden Lake. He didn't wait for permission. Day after day, he searched. He mapped the terrain, studied snowmelt patterns, and pushed into places most people wouldn't dare go. Some mocked him. Others called him crazy. Brad didn't. Instead, Brad joined him. And for 2 years, they hiked those mountains together. 2 broken men chasing one impossible hope. Until the day hope wasn't impossible anymore. It was October 17th, 2021. Bud, Kevin Dares, a man who had his own missing person tragedy, and 2 volunteers pushed into a narrow section of wilderness where search teams had long since given up. The rain came down in sheets. Kevin stopped suddenly. Bud! Up ahead, in the undergrowth, something orange. A thermarest sleeping pad. Bud's chest tightened. Beside it, a green backpack. And then red hair. Kevin's voice cracked over the radio. I've got her. There was silence. Then Bud whispered, Stay there. We're coming. Hours later, Brad was standing in the rain. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just knelt down beside her. And for the first time in 667 days, he let himself cry. Rachel was less than a mile from the trail. One wrong turn in heavy snow. That was all it took. When they carried her down, Brad followed behind. At the trailhead, he placed his hand against the body bag. I've got you now, baby girl. Bud stood nearby, silent. Kevin whispered, Brad, Dad's gonna sleep tonight. 2 years of agony. Over. And as the mountains swallowed the last echo of the searchers' boots, Hidden Lake was silent again. Only this time, it wasn't cruel silence. It was peace. Rachel Lacaduck's story isn't just about a hiker lost in the wilderness. It's about a father who refused to quit, a stranger who believed when no one else would, and a mountain that kept its secret until it didn't. 2 years of silence, 2 years of searching, 2 years of hope that never truly died. In the end, Rachel was found not because the trail gave her back, but because love wouldn't let her stay lost. And maybe that's what we should remember about this place, about these mountains, and about the people who vanish into them. Sometimes the wilderness takes. Sometimes it gives back. If it were your daughter, your sister, your friend, would you have kept searching, even when the world told you to stop?